Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Tapestry. I'm Napoleon Bell and I am the Executive Director with the City of Columbus Community Relations Commission. I'd like to welcome you to the program, but we'd also like to welcome my co-host.
I wonder who that is. Tony Bell.
Well, Miss Tony Bell, here again. As always, we are the dynamic duo trying to make things happen here in the City of Columbus, but also trying to let you know about the great people that are making great things happen, those ordinary people doing extraordinary things here in the City of Columbus. But you know, one thing that I am doing this year, you know, it's my first time, but I actually could say I've been doing it ever since I've had a child, yes, but is mentoring. I have signed up to do the mentoring program through the school or through the city, and I just had my interview, which was really easy. The interview that they do,
but
just to find out about about you know yourself and all that, and then I get the training next week. And so then I think I'm assigned to A+ Arts Academy, so I am excited about that. Yeah, you know, this is some great things that you know this is my first year doing it, officially first year doing it and mentoring a young man at A+ Arts Academy. So I'm real excited about that, and we're going to be talking to people here about how you can get involved and get engaged in mentoring.
And why it's so important.
Yes, and so you know. It makes me think that when you think of a young black male in America, does your mind automatically give you the image of a happy, healthy, well-educated person who has had some opportunity to participate in the social and economic fabric of society as privileged groups, or does something else come up?
You know, in the year 2015, we continue to have statistics showing black males in the United States are among the most disparate in the country. Only 17% of black males have college degrees, have bachelor's degrees compared to 30% of all males in the U.S., and they have lower participation in the labor force, 67% compared to 80% of all males, lower earnings, higher rates of incarceration, and the list goes on. Imperative to acknowledging this isn't just saying that this is a list that goes on, these are lives. So we are here not only to remind you that every life matters, but to give you the opportunity to get involved from some strategic people who have taken the time to really think through, come up with some curriculum and easy ways for you to help blend together the social fabric of our community.
So we're real excited that we have these three special guests. So without further ado, the essentials for people who mentor young black men and boys, please welcome our first guest. And to my right is Mr. Steve Vassar. He's a consultant and mentor for the National Mentoring Partnership. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right, and next to him, we have Miss Ashley Wilson. She's the Outreach and Engagement Manager of the Kirkland Institute. Welcome you to the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
All right, and then to our left, we have the only Marilyn Pritchett, who's the Director Emeritus for the Mentoring Center of Central Ohio. I'd like to welcome you to the program.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So glad to have all three of you here. And you know, we're going to start our questioning off with Steve, though, because we understand that you have to catch a plane. We understand that.
That's right.
And so we want to make sure that we pick your brain as quickly as possible and get as much information from you within the next few minutes. So,
all right, so I'm going to jump right in. Steve, tell us, what is Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership?
Yeah, so Mentor is the lead champion for mentoring across the country. If you have participated in mentoring in the U.S., whether through Big Brothers Big Sisters, a faith-based organization, community-based organization, or some other kind of formal relationship, Mentor has probably undergirded. This is their 25th year of operation in the U.S., and they activate their work through a network of mentoring partnerships, which are networks of mentoring organizations that are in 27 communities across the U.S. and cover about 28 states.
That's phenomenal. Wow. So you also did some research on mentoring and national black males in the United States. What were some of the findings that led you to focus on black males?
Yeah, so in the year 2014, during the time of both the Trayvon Martin decision, during the time that Mike Brown was killed, and during a time when cities were in upheaval. Mentor and the Campaign for Black Male Achievement supported research that allowed me to go into 6 cities, Oakland, Oakland, Chicago, Detroit, New York, Newark, and Baltimore, Maryland. And we spoke to over 200 mentors, and we asked them a series of questions around mentoring young black men and what it took. They gave us over 1,700 responses, unduplicated, that we then sorted into over 70 categories. And we took the top 3 responses. So here's what the mentors told us. They told us that mentors who work with young black men need to know what their privilege is and what their biases are, what their lens is, who they are.
Oh, the mentors
The
themselves,
mentors
not
must
the
know,
students.
that's correct. They must know themselves. Because young people, as we all are very aware of, young people have a very strong sense of smell, and they can tell when you know yourself versus when you don't, and they act accordingly. And so mentors need to know who they are coming into that relationship, number 1. Number 2 is a mentor needs to help the young man move through his social capital, that no matter where you find that young man in his life, whatever the circumstance, that you can help him find the resources to move through and help him identify. And also see the family, whatever the condition the family is in, to see the family as a resource as well, and to align yourself as a mentor to that mentee's family to help that young man move through. And the last piece is really helping to fan the flames of that mentee's interest by finding their spark and helping the mentee understand that they can do whatever they want to do as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, and that we're going to help them get there. So that's what we learned through the research.
Well, let me ask you, and I think we can get back to some of that definitely, but, you know, we talk about young black males. You know, I'm sure the question has come up, what about the ladies? You know, the ladies need some help also. What about them? And also other disenfranchised groups. What about them?
So we know that there are struggles to be found everywhere. We also know that as soon as one group stands up, and I'm forgetting the sister's name, but Angela Davis and a Latina sister said that the oppression Olympics begin, which means what about me? So as soon as we talk about young black women, which happened in the 90s, then every other group said, well, what about Latina girls? And what about Latino males? And what about Native Americans? And so on and so forth. This work, and I think you led right in the beginning of this session, this work is really focused on how do we address this specific group. And frankly, if you awaken what I've heard called the dormant potential that lives in young black men. So we can talk through the soapbox alert. We can talk about the problems and the pathology, or we can talk about the opportunity and the love that it takes to get a young black man or boy to become an adult black man. And if we live in the pathology, then we grow pathology. But if we live in the love and in the opportunity, we grow love and opportunity. So even in our language around young black men and boys, humanizing them as opposed to males and females, we get into a different discussion. But relative to the other groups, what's key is that if we awaken the dormant potential of young black men in America, we set the stage for every other group in America. Now, the other piece I would say is that we create a both and scenario, because as go the men, so go the women, as go the women, so go the men. So our work is focused on men and boys, but I bet you $1 to a donut, there's a lot of work focused on girls and young women, and we need to do this work in lockstep together to ensure we are reinforcing what's great in our communities and in America.
Well said. I hope the viewing audience really takes heed of that. And if they need to TiVo this and rewind it and go back to that statement, it's really precious the way you say it. And it really gets back to the value of the village coming together.
Well, what's the call to action? I ask you that because it sounds like, you know, we need to do something, and the research shows that. So what's the call to action?
Well, the call to action are a few, but I will say that if you are a person who is watching this show right now and you are looking to help, we need your help. However you get to us, we need your help. Now, we would ask that you have some sense, that you come and you're legal, and that you're moral, and you're ethical, and you're sober. But with those 5 criteria, we need you. We meaning young black men. We also need you to come with your truths and be honest about who you are, where you are, and don't assume that just because you don't look like that young black man, that you have nothing of value to offer that young black man. And so what I would submit is bring your truths and be sober, be responsible, ethical, moral, and do things that are legal, and, you know, get in where you fit in, as the young people used to say.
This is great. So do you have a way for people to connect with you if someone from our viewing audience wants more information and to get involved?
I do. They can contact Marilyn or Kamita, who are my handlers, but I think locally I would want them to contact my manager. That's right, start local, for sure, because I think that the resources and the answers are available locally. And we've got to tap into the wisdom and the knowledge that's here locally to change what happens locally, and then make sure that those young men and young women are then able to spread that love and opportunity.
That's beautiful. So speaking of spreading love and opportunity, we've got to get you on a plane.
But I've got one more question.
Oh, you've got one more.
I've
Okay.
got one more, and I know. So we got 3 minutes to. So, but you know, I go back to the young black women, and you did research in regards to young black men. Do you foresee research being done in regards to the young black women?
It absolutely has happened. As a matter of fact, not 1 week after the president announced from the White House the launch of My Brother's Keeper, there was a report that came out from co-signed by 1,000 women from across the country who laid out statistics relative and data relative to the condition that young black women find themselves in, and that young Latina women find themselves in, and the challenges. I mean, frankly, you know, women it's particularly young black women and black girls and young black women carry, a burden that needs to be examined and has been examined very carefully. And what I would submit is that we do need to support and continue to lift up that story as well. But within this container, within this frame, this is the lane that we operate in. And I consider it one lane on a multi-lane highway, and we're all moving towards greater opportunity, towards, again, coining the president's phrase, towards a more perfect union, and that means that we've all got work to do in these lanes to get there.
Excellent. Steve, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, you now can head out to Dayton to get your airplane.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you so much.
Yeah, continue to change the world.
Yeah, and we'll have to have you back on the show, you know, here in a few. Tell us what else is going on there.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so
Keep us
much.
updated.
All righty.
So, Marilyn, you are the Director Emeritus for the Mentoring Center of Central Ohio. You very well could be retired and enjoying your retirement in some sunny part of the world and doing other things, but you choose to spend your time continuing the work with the Mentoring Center. Why is that?
You know, the passion that brought me into this work in the beginning, I feel just as strongly. And I am just so committed, as is the whole Mentoring Center, to just believing that every young person deserves to live out their true potential. And we just see that that is not happening for all the kids that it should be happening for. So we are utterly passionate about that. And one of the things that I would say too is, even if the only thing you cared about in this was that America could continue to be a meaningful democracy, we cannot afford to leave behind 10 or 20% of the population. We need the gifts and talents and caring of everybody in this land. And so far, that's not really happening, and we need to see that it is happening. So mentoring is one of the things that by building that relationship, I often say you can get kids to do things for people they care about and trust that they wouldn't even yet do for themselves, like homework. But if a mentor says, you know, how are you doing in school? And we've had this as an actual story. A mentor continued to ask this. He didn't tutor him. He just asked him every time they were together, how's school going? This young person said, I just said to myself, it must be important. And he went from a D average to a B plus average because he started turning in his homework because he understood that it was important. So we just, as a former high school and college teacher, I deeply care about the academics. I want them to do really well in school, and I want them to do well in every other thing, and so does the whole Mentoring Center.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you for your dedication. You certainly were the right director at the time, and you've done a wonderful job transitioning and having Kamita as your director now. And
Well,
thank you for
it
your
sounds
ongoing support.
like she has not missed a step.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
the passion is definitely still there.
She hasn't missed a beat.
Thank you.
Definitely. Well, let's switch sides here and speak with Ashley, you know, as the working with the Outreach and Engagement Program Manager there for the Kirwan Institute. So please first tell us a little bit about, for our viewing audience, you know, what the Kirwan Institute is, first of all, if they don't know, but then also, how does the Kirwan Institute connect with mentoring?
Sure. So the Kirwan Institute is an applied research institute at Ohio State University. And so in large, our organization seeks to understand the causes to and the solutions to racial disparities, racial and ethnic disparities in this country. And so that encompasses a wide range of work. And so you've seen our name on the Champion of Children reports, and we do a lot of data work in a lot of regions, municipalities, cities around the country, just to understand where opportunity exists and even how that plays into race and socioeconomic status and things like that. As we relate to mentoring, last summer we got a grant, well, we're funded through the county. So we got a grant in partnership with Community Development for All People, which is right on the south side, to operate a pilot program for at-risk boys on the south side of Columbus, ages 10 to 14. And so that particular program encompasses mentoring on an official level. So we're building an infrastructure with organizations like the Mentoring Center and Big Brothers Big Sisters to actually get the boys matched up with mentors in the community. But there's also a very informal mentoring component that just comes along with our staff's interactions with these boys on a daily and weekly basis.
So what are some of your experiences or observation in working with the boys?
So the boys, they come from some truly heartbreaking circumstances. And one of the things that I observe with them is that they still are very resilient. They're still very much children. And sometimes we talked a little bit about that this morning at a panel discussion that we were at, the innocence that's lost with some of the things that they have to encounter on a daily basis. But when you get to interact with them, you see how truly remarkable they are, and they're still willing to laugh and joke and play and talk about their dreams and their goals, and very, very intelligent. And you're truly in awe of how resilient they are despite some of their circumstances.
Is this the work that you thought you would be doing when you were in school, dreaming of your future?
No. So I have a Bachelor of Science in Journalism, Public Relations as a specialization from Bowling Green State University. And so I don't think I saw myself in this work exactly, but similar to what Marilyn was saying, I have a passion for helping people. I believe in people believing that they can be the best that they can be, and I don't believe anybody has any reason to feel stagnant or to feel like they have to lose hope on their lives regardless of the circumstances. So that's a very broad passion to have, but I'm proud to say that I'm working to help alleviate some of those circumstances for these boys.
Amazing. Well, let's just shift gears a little bit. Back to you, Marilyn. I've got a question because, and I think Steve brought it up in regards to who can be a mentor. You know, does a person have to look like them, this, that, and the other, to be a mentor? And is there something that would prevent someone, I guess, from being a mentor? So I know I'm going through the process, and I'm enjoying I'm so fired up for it.
Yes.
You know, who can be a mentor?
Really, anybody can be a mentor, and what we count on is the fact that they've probably had some additional experience in the world that the young person may not yet have had. And one of the things that I think is quite wonderful is a mentor is often halfway between being a friend and being a parent. They're not they're not simply either one of those. But what we know is that especially teenage kids go through a situation where we've had kids say to us, I will listen to any adult except my mom. And some of us as mothers have probably felt that. But the fact of it is, if they have an external person that then they've come to know in more of a friendship basis, that usually works. And the other positive about that is that otherwise they may be listening only to their 14-year-old friends who frankly don't know a lot more than they know at 14 or 11 and 11, et cetera. So the advantage that we really have in that instance is that the young person does come to trust their mentor, and the mentor can bounce in with bits of information that the child really needs, but they might not have gotten them from their friend, and they might have ignored them from their parent. So as long as Steve said, that the person is moral and ethical and responsible, we absolutely want that person to be there as a mentor because they can have such a huge impact for that young person.
Now, what type of commitment does it take? Because you might have a year, you might have 2 years, but then, my follow-up question would be,
Sure.
If you're with someone for several years, I can't imagine saying, okay, now go on your own.
It's true. Well, sometimes things do change. Sometimes the mentor gets a different job, or their job moves out of town, or some of those things happen, but we certainly try to keep the conversation going very well. And I should say, the Mentoring Center does not have mentors of its own. We work with 35 other youth mentoring organizations in town, one of which is Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we do the training of mentors for all those organizations. And so among the things that we would say to them is, build this trust-built relationship, work to help this young person be whatever he or she wants to be, and then we hope that the connection stays for a long time. We know that from research that the best matching at about 2 years, the biggest impacts happen. So it's not that year one doesn't matter, but it just keeps building in its vitality and its value because the connection between that young person and that mentor has grown and grown. And I always think that how you really know you've arrived with a kid is when they're willing to tell you something they're worried about, or I'm not very good at math and I need some help about this. And so if we think about how long did it take you to tell your dear friend things about yourself that were ones that we were puzzled about or worried about, that also tells you it takes a while before you share at those deeper levels. And the same thing is true for a young person. But we want those connections and those relationships to last. I have a friend who says that she has a mentee that is now 40 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And now they haven't been seeing each other every week, but when there is a big decision in that person's life, she still calls her former mentor because they're friends. And they're still very deeply connected, and she's known her since she was probably 11 years old. So we don't ever want the connection to end. We know sometimes it does, and we also have strategies about how to make that happen. But lots and lots of people can be wonderful mentors, and you don't have to start out knowing a ton, because we will coach you and educate you about what good mentors do. That is one of the central things that the Mentoring Center does do, is coach people in how to be good mentors and staff people in how to oversee quality relationships.
That's beautiful. Now, you both probably have some interesting statistics that you might be able to share with our viewing audience to help them better understand why mentoring is so important, and specifically why mentoring young Black males is important. So feel free to share
Sure. So a lot of the statistics that I'll speak to are related directly to the work we do on the South Side. So zip codes 43206 and 43207 is our designated program area. And so, for example, in that particular area, the graduation rates are fairly low. I think they're just over 50%. And so that's a really important issue that needs to be tackled in terms of violence. So the South Side has been identified as a hotspot for violence, especially gun crimes that involve African American male youth. So another issue, another example in which having a positive example to look up to would be very beneficial. The poverty rates on the South Side, and even in Columbus in general, are devastating. And so speaking to the South Side in particular, 56% of Black males aged 6 to 14 live in poverty in 43206. And so kind of what I was speaking to at another event yesterday was just there are some basic needs that these boys have that are going unmet. And these include food and clothing and a place to sleep, and all these things are going to impact how they're going to do at school. The example that I give is if I'm an adult, you know, we're all adults. If we didn't eat for a day or didn't sleep a good night, imagine how we would be sitting here today. If last night, you know, we slept on the floor, hadn't eaten since Tuesday. And so imagine what that's like for a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old. It can be devastating. So it's a little bit, you can understand how going to school, it would impede your ability to be your best successful self in school. And so, these are some of the reasons why on the South Side it's very important, and even in Columbus in general, it's very important for there to be men, women, African American, Caucasian, individuals that are willing to come out and, as Steve said, help these families, because that also ties back into talking about the women. You know, you're looking at a lot of the boys in our program and a lot of boys in the city who are in single parent homes, single mother homes, and so interacting with the families, interacting with the women is a very, very important part. So trying to see where you can be a resource to that family, where you can complement that family's abilities, and where you can just provide an example for them and let them know that you understand, you can relate to them, which goes back to the trainings that Marilyn and Steve were talking about, being able to relate to the experiences that they're going through. There's a great need for it.
Well, let me ask you this, because, and I want to make sure that our viewing audience understands I guess the roles and responsibility of the mentor. And so I was hearing something in regards to the parents and this, that, and the other. And I know you've got percentages also, statistical information. Gosh, so many questions I've got. So I want to come back to you. But from what you're saying, what is the roles and responsibility of a mentor?
Guidance, caring, trust, building. We also absolutely believe that one of the wonderful things that mentors can do, because they do typically know a bit more and have more life experience, access, I think, is one of the important things, and Steve certainly referred to that families and children often don't know that they have access, and the city of Columbus has resources, many other places have resources, and certainly we try to point people in those directions. But it's absolutely important to help. If there is a young person, for instance, who thinks he might want to be in a culinary field, well, we happen to know that Columbus State Community College has a quality culinary program. Does that kid or does that family know that? And do they know how to access that? Well, that's the kind of thing that then a mentor can be kind of the conduit that helps that family see this is not out of our reach at all. This is something that there might even be some scholarship help for this young person. There's the Pell Grant. Let's see what we can do to help make that happen. So some of these things are really not as hard as they might look from the outside, and a mentor will often help that young person see, you can make that phone call. Let's get, I'm here with you. Let's practice what that phone call looks like and what some of the questions are you want to ask, and let's get on with it. Let's do it now. So we can often get, we often say every fifth grader thinks they're going to go to college, and by the time they're in 10th grade, you discover that they have not knowingly taken one step in the right direction of making that happen. But lots and lots of mentors across the country and here are middle class, college educated, and they know many of those steps, and that can be not a terribly difficult thing. And again, would hasten to say, we don't think that every young person needs to go to college. We are perfectly happy if there are other kinds of experiences, IT work, et cetera. We just want them to be able to maximize their potential and ultimately move in a direction of something they care about, and that they can make a wage that allows them to live and have a family and make those positives happen in their life. So, but mentors know many of those things. We know lots of them as well, and we can provide guidance to a lot of those resources, and we are always empowering mentors to be the ones to help that young person move in the direction he or she wants to.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna flip back over. So you talked about some of the things that you came up with, or that were issues and hurdles, and one of those being going to school hungry. I know in the My Brother's Keeper Summit, the young kids, I think it was 8 to 12 years old, their number one piece was hunger, going to school hungry. And so through your research that you've been doing on the South Side, has there been any singular piece that has just really stood out for you in that area?
In relationship to hunger?
Well, just in relationship to the issues that they're, that they're trying to overcome, and which would be the need for some type of mentoring.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's like a top 3 to 5 or so,
Okay.
and I would agree with those boys. Hunger would be the number one. If a boy is malnourished, again, as I said before, how can we expect them to go through, right, to pay attention or to be able to, process their emotions or do anything to the best of their ability? I would say the next important thing would be housing.
Okay.
And furniture, and even a stable, safe house. A lot of the boys are living in a home where there may be, cousins and aunts and uncles. There's a lot of people in the house, and maybe none of them are sleeping on a bed. They're all sleeping on the floor. So being able to provide them with safe housing, to be able to get rest, to be able to go somewhere and kind of decompress, and that's a very, very important thing. Definitely access to medical care. Being able to diagnose some of them with some of these conditions that they may not otherwise have the opportunity to be diagnosed. Their parents may not know to recognize some of these issues in them. And so I always add that to the story. Perhaps there's something that is going on medically with the child, and that's the reason why he can't sleep at night, or that's the reason why he can't focus. It just continues to add on, and if nobody knows how to recognize it, or if he hasn't gotten a screening or anything to that nature, you're just continuing to add on to his burdens. And then a consistent caring presence, absolutely. Consistency is very important. As I mentioned earlier with our program, we interact with the boys face-to-face at least once a week, so that would be on Saturday mornings, but we have a couple of staff members who go out and engage with the families during the weekdays as well. So that consistent presence of somebody who cares about you and somebody who can expose them to experiences that they may not have had the chance to do, coming to Ohio State, or as Marilyn was mentioning, exposing them to different resources that exist right in their community that you'd be shocked to know they have never even, some of them left their block or have never even been within a 2-mile radius of where they live. So being able to expose them to new experiences, to experiences that are going to be able to afford them the opportunity to get where they want to be in life.
That's amazing. So I want to make sure that people feel like they can engage and become a mentor. So the first thing is give us the Mentoring Center's contact information.
Oh, absolutely. So our office is at Big Brothers Big Sisters on 161, and our phone number is 614-839-2447, 839-2447. I'm extension 163. Kamita Dover, who's now the executive director, is 103. So we'd love to hear from any good people. And I realize I didn't answer Napoleon's one question about how often. Many of our partner programs, 35 of them, Ashley's program meets weekly, but many people who have a community-based mentoring where they do the Saturday afternoon in the park kind of thing, many times people will do twice a month for 2 hours each time, so trying to average about 4 hours a month. Obviously, there are also school-based programs. Big Brothers Big Sisters has Project Mentor, and those being school-based, that is typically once a week at a defined time. They will try to find a place in town where you can consistently go to this particular school, so that it will be a consistent thing of when you go, you know, every Wednesday at 11 or whatever that is. So that will be the kind of thing, and they will try to have that be a place that is not too far from your office or home.
So
Well, that's the one that I'm in, is Project Mentor. And
That's
you
what
can
I
see my
thought.
excitement. And well, the great thing about it, you know, with Project Mentor also, they're also still taking people to sign up. So, so they
Absolutely.
can call CC Harris.
Yes.
And she gave, her number is 645-1264. So we want our viewing audience to make sure that you call, if you want a mentor, and you,
the city of Columbus.
Through the City of Columbus, Project Mentor, 645-1264. And like you said, it's a week, or
Once
one
a
day
week.
during the week.
That's right.
Around lunchtime,
And that's 1 hour.
1 hour. And when school's on break, you don't have to go, it's just when school's in session.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's very easy.
yes,
It is, and they will come with springboard activities for you, which you can then, if your young person wants to just focus on talking to you, you don't have to do that activity, but it's always there so that you don't have to worry about, well, I don't know if I have anything of lasting value that I want to say to this young person or questions to ask. There will always be springboard activities for you. And our other 35 programs have equally wonderful things going on. So we can also, one of the things the Mentoring Center does is help people conclude, well, I specifically want to work with a young person on the East Side, and I'm happy to do that at the end of the day. Well, we have a program that, with one of our other providers, all that is at that is on Whitehall schools, at the high school in Whitehall. So there are a range of things going on, and the Mentoring Center is kind of the broker in the center for helping people see where all they might choose to be.
That's really wonderful. I'm glad to hear you talk about the programs and being able to go into the schools for 1 hour a week. When you think about the children and the fact that they may be hungry, they may be sleeping on the floor, etc., it can be, I would imagine, a little bit overwhelming in the mind of a potential mentor, because that person might be thinking, oh, well, I'll have to deal with all of those other real life issues. But really, the reality is, when you're with that child, especially if you're on their, at their school building, you really get to be with that child and focus on what's going on in that school for that day.
The other thing I would toss in there that I think is really important to know is we would ask, for instance, if you became aware that the young person you were mentoring, let's pretend it's now winter, and that young person you're realizing doesn't have a coat. It is not your responsibility to solve that, but what we would want you to do is tell the person, the staff person who is the liaison to you, because then that person will go back to their parent agency, their parent organization, and they will do the referral to help make that happen. So we definitely want mentors to know that is not yours to solve. We will broker those kind of connections to make those solutions happen.
And it's really nice. I would imagine that it's really nice to have an adult with you who can just interact with you, the person, because kids don't always, they don't want to think about their problems 24 hours a day. Right. They can even block out hunger long enough to get a couple laughs in if they
That's
can.
true. And it's part of the wonderment of dealing with a young person.
I know. Yeah, the resilience you talked about.
And I'm hearing consistency and stability. So being a mentor brings
Very
kind of
much so.
They can count on this person as a stable life in a sense, but somebody that they can say, okay.
And it also helps them see that there are positive, good things that come out of that stability. And indeed, if that mentor maybe has children of his or her own, that doesn't supplant the relationship. And I think it is wonderful for that young person to see that, oh, this could be my world. I can take steps that would make this be my world. And that living example, that role modeling around, I'm compassionate, I'm caring. As I've heard people say, you have to love kids, and so many people do. And this is a way to make that living and real for a distinct person that will have a lasting difference.
Absolutely. So there was a question, I remember years ago, the Mentoring Center, in conjunction with then State Representative Joyce Beatty, now Congresswoman Joyce Beatty.
Yes.
And you brought a speaker in, and the event was around a book called Who Mentored You? And it was a question that you had a tendency to ask a lot. So to connect you both with the audience, could you both talk about who mentored you? Yeah, I mean, because we see these wonderful people making a difference in the world, but the truth is it took a village to make you who you are and you who you are, and it took a really big village to work with you.
With a lot of food.
Actually, why don't you go back to that?
Sure. Well, I'd say in terms of making me the woman that I am today, I really would have to attribute my great-grandmother for that. So it's not like an external mentoring relationship, but it's not a direct parental relationship. And so, but I think that part of what we were discussing, her being consistently there for me, her being able to tell me what I was capable of, her allowing me to see different things, taking me to church, those types of activities, and her doing that every single weekend, because I went and spent every weekend in Cleveland with her. And so being able to spend that time with her has really molded me into the woman that I am today, especially since that was in those younger years of my life, 0 to 5 or 6 or so. And she is still living today, by the way. She's 97, living in Cleveland.
Wow.
Yes. So as you can tell, she's a very, very strong woman, and I would say having her presence my entire life and having her to refer back to has been very powerful in where I am.
What a blessing. And I know she's very proud of you.
Thank you. I hope so.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, and I had a wonderful mother as well. And I also had, interestingly enough, I had an English teacher, and I became an English teacher, as I said, high school and college. But this person actually really just kind of ignited some interests of mine. She was also the person who, at one point, I was on the school paper, and suddenly it was like coming into my senior year, and she was designating me to be the editor, which I had never thought about, and suddenly that was going to be on my plate. And I certainly did not know whether I was ready to do that, but she was confident that I was. And, that led to my being most outstanding girl and all that sort of thing. I mean, just some of those things that you don't know. That's one of the best things that mentors do, is say, I'm confident you can do this, and because they know you. It's different than just a globalized compliment, like, you're great. Well, that can be a lovely thing too. But to say, this story that you wrote is really good. It's really mature writing, or whatever that may be. And so for a mentor that says to a young person, I really believe you can go to college and be successful. For somebody that knows you and has looked over your shoulder while you did some of your homework and saw the ways to help expand your skill set, then when they say, I know you can go to college and be successful, that means something different than just that broad brush, oh, this is great. Right. Because, yes, this is well written, and this would be convincing. You would do well if you were turning this in as a paper to a college professor. So we also coach that. How do you give compliments that really are about something and are defined and specific? That all matters.
Yeah, that's really, constructive compliments are really powerful.
They really are.
Well, we've talked about the person that you're mentoring, but what have you heard from the mentors? What does this do for them?
Oh, I think at the time that I was teaching high school and college, I didn't have children of my own, but I've said that one of the differences is when you're a teacher, you worry about what kids don't yet know. And when you're a parent, you're so grateful for everything they do know because you know that was hard won in many instances. And I would say that one of the things that you cannot change or get around is, as a mentor, you've been there helping make all those gains happen. You've been the reinforcer of many of those, that willingness to be creative, to think about, to define the pathway to a good science project, etc. So the satisfaction you feel when you see this young person able, for instance, to stand in front of a class and give a report, you want to just jump up and click your heels because you are saying, oh my gosh, do you realize that at the beginning, this young person would have no more been willing to stand in front of a group and sound persuasive and do a quality job of advancing a point of view. But now he or she can do that and do that with poise and success. Wow. I mean, you just can't get past how glowing you really feel when that happens. And so as a parent, you see that with your children, but as a mentor, you augment your ability to see that because you've helped bring this young person along in ways that you didn't. When my mentee was in the 8th grade and made the honor roll, at which I don't think she ever believed would happen, and I'm not sure any of the other people. It was like I was just joyous because it said to me, these doors are now opening that she didn't know and I wasn't sure whether we're going to open or not.
Yeah,
so it's
way to say that.
beautiful.
Yeah, the doors that she didn't know and I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
I see, I'm already glowing.
That is totally fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely.
This
Well, you will help recruit a bunch of other people. That will be
okay.
great.
We are going to recruit 1,000 people. You know, I heard Columbus on Project Mentor. I think they have about 90 or so, and so we got to push it over the top. We've got to make sure that we're over 100. You know, I am asking you, the viewing audience, to get involved in mentoring. If you're on Facebook, you know, you can go to. Well, I just posted something on Nat Bell. Are you on Facebook? I mean,
not enough to help you, but the Mentoring Center has a Facebook page.
The Mentoring Center has a Facebook page.
So just do that and get involved there. And the other quick thing I want to say: a city employee said to me at our session this morning. That lots of people that work for the city have jobs that require them to be, you know, they're doing housing analysis, et cetera. So he was pointing out that if the school-based program doesn't work for you because you then have to be at a certain place at a certain time, there is community-based mentoring, of course, as well, and that can be where you and the young person simply conclude when you're going to get together. That might be every other Saturday afternoon, so it may work flexibly for someone in a better way. So they should be aware that they can do either or both of those kinds of things.
What you're saying is, where there's a will, there's a way. There are lots of ways.
There are lots of ways. That's absolutely
Very
true.
good.
That's absolutely true.
Well, one thing before we go, I want to touch on it because we want to make sure we get both your contact numbers and all that. And I think it just posted today in regards to health care of our young people, is that Nationwide Children's Hospital is now collaborating with Columbus City Schools to provide nurse practitioners. I just saw that today. So this is great stuff, you know, to address one of the things that you just spoke of.
So we actually, Nationwide is one of our partners for More Than My Brother's Keeper. And so as part of that partnership, we took the boys to Nationwide to get free health screenings. And so in doing so, we actually came up with 2 potentially early diagnoses for diabetes in 2 of the boys. And so it was very, very, we were so touched that we were able to do that for them, because for them being, I think about 10 or 11 or 12, however old they were. Yeah, it was very, very important to be able to get a jump start on recognizing some of those symptoms. So very, very grateful to Nationwide, and I think it's wonderful that they're starting to partner with the schools to address some of these health issues.
You know, the other thing that makes me really proud, and I'll say that in this forum, it makes me proud to see so many agencies that know how to play in the sandbox. It's just really important. You know, your research is important and everyone needs their funding, but working together collaboratively is really building the safety net, this proverbial tapestry that's going to catch all these kids and help them become really productive and give back in ways that we could never even imagine.
And I would say certainly the Mentoring Center has always been strongly collaborative. We have all these partner agencies, but now distinctly working on this training for young black males as well. In just the last couple of days, we have increased our connections and in ways that I think will be wonderful. And one of the things that I commented before, that this wonderful Champion of Children report that is on United Way's website and that the Kerwin Institute and community research partners contributed to, that one of the things they say in there is that many challenges, if left unaddressed, imperil boys of color, and we could add everyone that does not have an easy time in this world. It could imperil boys of color successful entry into adulthood and their ability to be flourishing, productive members of our community. But there are contexts in which boys of color are thriving. And we would also say children coming out of poverty are thriving in many places. And what we're all working to do is increase the number of places where they're thriving. And Pedro Noguera said that all the grit in the world without opportunity leaves you stuck. And so we're really all looking for, you need to think not just about effort, he said, but how are we expanding opportunities, building connections, and he said mentorship, access to jobs, access to college, these are the opportunities that change lives. And so we really want to see all those important resources be there for young people.
Exactly. You know, what I would like to see is all these, the mentors and the mentees and those who have thrived and come together to really, I love to hear their stories.
Absolutely. Come to the mentoring centers. Our mentoring celebration is every January at the State House. This year, during National Mentoring Month, this year it will be January 21st. Starting at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Joyce Beatty had been at every one of those till she was elected to Congress and still drops in as she's able. So we would love to have all these additional folks be there.
Now, what's the date on that? And
Thursday, January 21st
Mark
at
your
the
calendars
State.
now.
Absolutely. 5 to 6 will be the receptions. Program starts at 6 o'clock, and we will be honoring mentors and mentees at that event, as well as the agencies that help make lots of this happen.
And you always tell great stories at that event.
We tell wonderful stories.
You tell great stories because you've all collectively created great stories.
That is really true, and honor our 35 partner agencies as well.
And I'm going to have a great story then, too.
You are,
Yes, you are.
Napoleon,
All right.
you really are,
And
absolutely.
so will Ashley. We'll look forward to hearing more from you.
Absolutely. And More Than My Brother's Keeper is on Facebook, just under More Than My Brother's Keeper, Franklin County. And you can also go to kerwininstitute.osu.edu. So that's Kerwin, Kirwan Institute. And there will be a tab for More Than My Brother's Keeper. And there's a video on there. It's about 2.5 minutes. It's like a little trailer for a documentary that we're shooting on the program. And so you'll be able to hear some of the boys' stories in that video as well if you're interested.
Oh, great.
And the Mentoring Center is at www.mentoringcenterco for centralohio.org. So you can find that there. And then our national organization is Mentor, National Mentoring Partnership, and that is at mentoring.org. And those don't duplicate each other very much. So there's lots of research on mentoring.org and lots of things about the Mentoring Center here at mentoringcenterco.org.
Very good. And so we're not asking for money. We're just asking for you. We're asking for you to come and support the life of a young child by donating 4 hours a month during the school year or through a program. You can contact, community-based program. You can contact the Mentoring Center of Central Ohio. You can go through the Kerwin Institute. You can go through the City of Columbus. So many opportunities, so let's all get involved.
There's no excuse why you can't get involved.
Everybody's got 4 hours.
I've got, and I've got them.
There you go.
I've got 4 hours to make sure this
Wonderful.
happens, and even more. So we like to appreciate both of you.
Up about this.
Yeah, I'm so fired up.
Ever since he signed
Yeah,
up.
Marilyn, Ashley, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being on the program
That's
and this
right.
great information about mentoring.
And another big thank you to Steve Vassar for joining us.
Yes, yes,
Absolutely.
definitely. And also, so if you'd like to get more information about this, make sure you connect with them, but also you can go to our website at www.crc.columbus.gov. We also have a Facebook page at, Columbus Community Relations Commission, and or my professional Facebook page is Nap Bell. But we want to make sure that we keep everybody up to date on what's going on. And I don't know if I'm allowed, but maybe, with my mentee, that I can do selfies and what have you, and really show the work that, really, I'm so pumped
really
up about
excited.
this. It's killing me.
Wonderful.
But so I want to see you get engaged. I want to see the
Exuberance.
rest of our community get engaged in mentoring.
We need you. We need you.
We definitely need you. So with that, also last thing, if you have ideas or you want to see something on the show, give our office a call. Also at 645-1993. That's 645-1993.
That's right, because the lack of realized potential is the lack of potential in all of us. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and have a great week.